I've got my jacket on, so you're seeing me getting dressed live on. Right? Are we live? Right? Okay. So sorry about that. No swearing, chaps. No more swearing. We are live, apparently. So Thursday afternoon, 5 p.m. I put my jacket on, especially for this fantastic. Right, I've got another interruption going on. Right, for this TPP Thursday afternoon, everybody's favorite time, every time of the week. So no more time wasting. Got a special guest, really interesting subject. And if you thought this thing about cost of living going up is bad news, the bills going up is bad news, inflation's bad news, unfortunately, we might have a bit more bad news, and it's all David's fault. David, over to you, mate.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, I mean, today's discussion, developments in stamp duty in 2022. I'll deal with what is potentially the bad news first. Is many experienced property purchasers will know that currently, if you buy a dwelling with something else that is not its garden or grounds, you get what is called mixed use, and you get a much lower rate of SDLT and on the lot. There was a consultation published November last year, which everybody responded to in February this year, where the Revenue had decided, quote, we'd had too much of a good thing, and they proposed to reform it. Now, that consultation closed in February. We heard nothing about it in the spring statement. We don't yet know whether they're going to change it, and if so, how. But it's looking likely that the what's called mixed use approach to residential or commercial property with residential elements is going to change. What that will probably mean is that we will end up paying residential SDLT on the residential element of a mixed use transaction and commercial SDLT on the other. The other thing that they're said they were concerned about is the number of multiple dwellings relief claims they were getting. Again, experienced property buyers will know if you buy an expensive house with an annex, it can save you anything from £10,000 to £87,000 per annex when buying. And what has happened is that HMRC have been hit with an avalanche of claims from people who bought moderately expensive properties, but that came with a self-contained annex. I think HMRC did some press releases on this a few weeks ago. Warning about dodgy reclaims was the title. But then in the article read, at least 67% of all these claims are in fact valid. Now, what that's saying to me is that there's a whole raft of people out there have woken up to this. So, and because of that, the Revenue have decided we've had too much of a good thing. So they're now proposing to reform multiple dwellings relief alongside the reform to the mixed use rules. And again, we don't know what they'll do, but it's clearly they're targeting granny annexes. That's where they feel that there is the quotes abuse, close quotes. Now, I don't think it's abusive. If you live in an extended nuclear family and wish to accommodate members of your family within self-contained accommodation on your property, why is that abusive? You're still providing that person with a home. But there are, I'll call it, certain overriding social policy reasons why this should not be abolished. Whether the Revenue listen to us, I don't know. And we're going to have to wait and see. And it may well be the autumn statement. It may be deferred for a year because clearly they don't want to disturb what may by then be a fragile property market. I mean, we've already had in the last 12 months, we've had the new non-residents 2% surcharge. And there was a press piece only a few days ago, maybe last week, where apparently people who are moving into very high value homes in London are now renting them instead of buying them. Why? Because the SDLT on a foreign national coming to this country could be as high as 17%. And it's become, I shall call it, cost effective particularly if they haven't determined that they're going to be here for the next 5 or 10 years, to say, no, tell you what, we'll rent the house for a period because that's cheaper than paying the stamp duty on the purchase. So has the government, by raising rates and introducing surcharges, killed the goose that was laying the golden eggs in the West End of London? That is the question. Or is it likely to continue? It's an impossible situation. I mean, when you now have stamp duty, land tax on a property purchase very nearly equal to the rate of VAT that we all used to enjoy at 17.5%. And some of us even remember VAT when it was only 8%. That's absolutely crazy. What are we doing here? I appreciate the government needs money, but surely there's a better way to do it than absolutely hammering the high-end property market, and thereby essentially preventing the sales of the property that bring in the very revenue that you're predicting. I mean, I don't know what your views are. I don't know whether you've seen any evidence of this. Does anybody had a situation like that recently?
Well, I'm going to be super controversial. If it keeps the foreigners out, I don't really care. Stops them buying high-end houses. Not that I can afford one of those anyway, but what do I care, right? But
it's interesting because we rely on a moving market to keep not only the public finances going, but the whole property industry going. If we start to paralyze the high end of the market, then it will ossify down lower sectors because there's no way to move up anymore.
Well, so they've had a go at landlords for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal view is, if you're going to do a buy-to-let on a normal residential home, don't bother. It's not worth it. And that, socially speaking, I do hate the granny annex thing, because I think extending nuclear, you're actually doing a social service if you're keeping your parents there. So right. I think for them to remove that rule is sort of super bad news. It's going to put more pressure on social services and so on, right? So that's a stupid thing to do. But who said civil servants are good at thinking of stuff, right? All they do, and I'm going to probably get a call from a taxman in a minute now, right? All they're good at is filling in the checklist, doing the boxes, no creative thinking. So that would be a shame about the granny annex stuff, because I didn't realize until you pointed it out that that's the implication, right? So
yeah, I know. I mean, when I did my own personal submission, and I did point this out, the abolishing this may actually, it's contrary to social policy. It's contrary to the idea that we should be cared for at home. It's contrary to a raft of social issues. I actually did say that, it may be discriminatory against certain ethnic groups who tend to.
That's a different conversation. Let's not get into that one.
No, but it has human rights implications. I mean, this is the whole point. At a time when we're trying to decrease pressure on public finances, here we go, lads. Let's punish people who are being good enough to look after their aging parents or impoverished children.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
But that doesn't matter, the human rights, because they're going to abolish that anyway.
What, human rights?
Yeah.
Well, if they do abolish the Human Rights Act, then we default back to the Bill of Rights, 1688, and I recommend you go and read it, because I have, and there'll be even more trouble. But Runnymede and all that. But yeah, it's interesting. So we've had this developing theme, and I'll describe it as, quote, the cracks are starting to show. There's clearly a large number of reclaims going in for overpaid stamp duty. And, methinks the lady doth protest too much a little bit. It's clear that the public is now waking up to the idea that the solicitor may not have got their SDLT right, and they are asking for it to be checked, which is, in my view, absolutely the right thing to do. So,
David, I'm not sure if that's your fault or if that's that you should get a medal for the education you've done on that. So it's one of the two, and it's probably of the same coin, right?
Well, I'm definitely not on HMRC's Christmas card list, I can tell you.
You're probably on the send something else through the post list, right?
Which is why I always appear on video with the background that I have, because if you want to come round, feel free.
No comment. We're not going to go to that one. We're not going to talk. We'll talk about the rockets in a minute, right?
Oh, that's why. Yeah, that's the one. But you know, no, it's one of the problems we have in our society these days is that the dissenting voice. This is getting slightly wide of tax, but anybody who is a voice of dissent against the state gets hammered. Our right to protest. I mean, I'm of a generation where if I wanted to drive or walk through Parliament Square waving a banner protesting something, I didn't need to go and get permission from the police to do it. I just rocked up.
Hang on a minute, David. This is the property professionals. This is not the political version of it yet. Yeah.
No, I know that, but we're just saying, you know, tax policy has direct social impacts and cuts across other elements of our society.
But more importantly, this is a pattern you see with taxation and civil service. They find something and they push it harder and harder and harder until they kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And unfortunately, I had to leave my back cave earlier on. I'm going to bring Akil in a minute if he's still awake. Is he coming back or is he wait? Sorry.
No, I'm still there, guys. I'm still there.
All right, you're still there, right? So I mean, don't share this with anybody, just between us. I had to leave my back cave this afternoon. I had to go to a meeting, and it was quite a local area, but this is classic local council. They'll start hammering the local businesses, putting in parking tickets, creating all sorts of problems for local areas, and then when it all falls to bits, Feltham is not too far up the road. Then they think, man, that's a slum. How are we going to regenerate it? Let's go and tax some more people, throw a few billions at it, and let's regenerate the area. It's like, you know, come on, guys, just leave things running as they are. It's like, it's typical government. Big, small, and medium, all of it. Rubbish. Sorry, David.
No, you're getting no disagreements out of me. You know, I mean, I'm a libertarian. Country governed least is governed best. That to me is let society sort it. Society generally will sort its own problems out if you let it free it to do so. But if you just try and regulate things out of existence or tax things, I mean, tax has been used as a means of social engineering in this country pretty much forever, but certainly prevalently in the last 30 years and 40 years. You know, you think about the duty on cigarettes, the duty on beer, that, you know, these are all social engineering techniques to try and dissuade you.
Listen, tax the cigarette guys and the beer guys as much as you want. I don't care about those things.
Oh, well, I'm going to pop out for a fag and a pint at this point because he's just started to upset me. But it's genuinely, you know, 3% surcharge was supposed to discourage second home ownership and investment. It didn't.
No.
2% surcharge is supposed to stop Johnny Foreigner coming in and buying second homes. It hasn't. At one moment, we're trying to discourage foreigners from coming to live here. And by the same breath, we're appealing for doctors and nurses from the NHS and saying we're trying to attract inward investment and capital. Excuse me, they're contradictory. The motives contradict each other. This is my point. Nobody at Treasury talked to DTI and Department of Health before they decided to put that in.
I can fix that for you. You know, there is a reasoning behind it. Just go and watch Yes Minister or Yes Prime Minister 40, 50 years ago. They give you the answer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was never my favorite sitcom, I have to say. But
it's even more relevant now. It's unbelievable. I mean,
all right. Let's get back to our topic.
Sorry. We were supposed to discussing property and stamp tax. Yes. For once, you are right. Let's get back to our topic. What's our topic again?
Come on,
I mean, you know, as we're saying, you know, we have these potential changes. I think developers and property professionals, whether they're on their own account or on their client's account, need to be aware that there are opportunities, but these opportunities may be going away.
Right.
Short term, we're seeing, and you may well have seen this, but I don't know, but because of the shortage of rental properties, we're seeing an upsurge in small and medium scale permitted development conversions and small developers coming to market now. That's hopefully going to address the shortfall in accommodation. But again, if they reform multiple dwellings relief, and one of the suggestions was only giving it to bona fide property developers, thereby giving them, I'll call it the wriggle room to challenge MDR claims on the basis of you're not a proper developer. Again, I don't think that's right. I think it should be, the relief is the relief. Deal with the property. Don't start specially qualifying it to certain interest groups, because that's fundamentally wrong. But, you know, going back to the theme, it's clear that given the number of claims they've had, that people are waking up and people are reviewing all their transactions over, say, the last 4 years, and then are tapping the revenue on the shoulder and saying, oh, chap, I think you owe me some money. Can I have it back, please? I mean, 18 months of lockdown, we recovered over 15 million in SDLT overpayments, and that was money that was desperately needed by those individual clients at a time of, you know, national economic crisis caused by the pandemic. So yes, and that is, and to me, that is still a relevant issue. We still see overpayments on a daily basis. I mean, thankfully, some people are waking up now and are coming to us before they complete their purchase and getting the advice in advance.
But that overpayment must be due to the negligence of the solicitors. They should be penalized for that if they don't know the law.
Yeah. The question is why are the solicitors not giving it the attention it deserves?
Because conveyancing is a mechanized system, and to just follow the system, and that's it.
Yes, it is. You're right. And the other problem they have structurally and internally, most law firms, it'll be the fee earner that will do the file. The stamp duty is regarded as a thing called a post-completion matter. They give the file to a junior member of staff or even an administrator and say, please deal with the post-completion. That person's got even less experience than them. And that's what's been going on. And I mean, I think it was last year, but certainly I haven't seen any headlines yet this year, but it was reported there were over 1,200 negligence claims against solicitors for stamp duty in error. And that was last year. And I think things are actually ramping up.
So, David, on just because this is supposed to be a property professionals program,
Right.
Are solicitors supposed to know the law on stamp duty, or let's start with that one? Are they supposed to know it?
Well, they're dealing with it.
No, because I think the terms and conditions says we're not supposed to know the law. We just fill the paperwork. Is that right?
Well, you've got a problem. I mean, a solicitor is a lawyer. He deals in the law. His first duty is to the law, and his next duty is to his client.
Right.
Can a solicitor plead ignorance of the law? I'm not sure that they can. But there's a third layer of issue here, which is even if a solicitor writes in there, I am not giving tax advice. Who put the number into the return?
Okay.
He touched the return. And there's a principle, I think it's called the Hedley-Byrne principles, which is even if you limit your terms of engagement, if you then do something outside the terms of engagement, you automatically assume responsibility for it under Hedley-Byrne principles. So they are doing the return. They're describing it as an administration charge, but they're not coming to the clients and saying, what number would you like us to put into your return, Mr. Client? They're going, there's the return. So there's an inherent assumption there that they have done some sort of calculation, some sort of consideration of the tax law as it relates to that transaction. I honestly don't feel solicitors have got a leg to stand on. I really
so they might be better off saying you've got to do your own STLD return.
Yes. I think they are. And we've got, I mean, we have a number of clients here, not necessarily the largest clients, who will tell their solicitor, I'm having my SDLT done outside. And they come to us and we do the return.
And clients can do that. The lawyers can't turn around and say, no, we have to do it for you.
Well, here's the interesting part, because we inherited a situation from stamp duty where the lawyer was giving an undertaking to the mortgage company that he would obtain registration of title within the priority period. Quite often solicitors believe they have to do the return because otherwise they breach their undertaking. We don't believe that's correct. In fact, all the lawyer needs to get the registration is the return submission receipt, not the return. So logically, when you send a return in, you get what's called a return submission receipt. You then use that to register title.
Right.
That's the paper trail, if you like, involved in that. So then you can go to land registry, you can register the title, you can register the lender's charge and everything else that goes with it. In actuality, the client could have appointed somebody else to do the return and get the submission receipt. And then, provided that person undertakes to the solicitor, I will deliver the submission receipt within 3 days of completion, the solicitor should be in the clear because he's got what he needs to register the charge.
So, okay. Sorry, interesting you mentioned mortgage brokers. I was going to bring Akhil on. I think, Akhil, you've suddenly had a spark there. So go for it, buddy.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in too early, but David, thank you for your comments there. So this is Akhil from our mortgage broker. So, we do millions of pounds worth of mortgages each and every week, and we're completing on those. So a couple of things that I wanted to just get a bit more insight on. Now, the conveyancer requests deposit monies at the same time prior to completion, as well as stamp duty funds to be paid in advance of completion, so they hold those funds. Now, from my recollection, the stamp duty funds are not due till 14 days have passed of completion. Now,
that's right.
In your experience, why do solicitors require this? And if the law states, and it's on the government website, that the stamp duty is not paid till up to 14 days post completion, what's the client's argument? How should they tackle that? And my other question I had for you was around, you guys did touch on it earlier. How do you calculate how much stamp duty is due? Now, if you are buying multiple dwellings, there are reliefs that some people can take into account and give you a discount. If you're purchasing commercial or semi-commercial properties, there is a lower tax, therefore, to pay. Now, I have these questions coming up each and every day of the week. I'm buying this property, how much tax am I due? Now, my hands are somewhat tied to the government website, albeit that there are really suave systems out there in the market that say, they ask a bit more further in-depth details to work out the calculations, which is quite frustrating. Now, the disclaimer is always going to be, I'm not a tax advisor, therefore, please don't, hold me to what I state on an email. However, I want to point the clients into a direction that they can be confident in how much they're paying in stamp duty, and are they paying the right amount? Because as Dill mentioned earlier around, how much do you actually pay, and does the solicitor have the obligatory right to provide you with the right information? And I've always found that solicitors will always use that government calculator, but that doesn't take into account if you're buying multiple dwellings. And I've used, various systems. They all punch out different numbers, unfortunately. So my question to you is there a suave system out there that people can use to get more of a thorough answer in stamp duty due? And the other question was, should the conveyancer ask for stamp duty funds ahead of completion?
Can I deal with those the other way around? Do you mind?
You're more than welcome to.
I think it's important for everybody to understand that when you engage with a solicitor, he's required by the Law Society or the conveyancing license, or whatever. He's required to give you an estimated completion statement.
Correct.
Well, he hasn't even seen the property yet. And that estimated completion statement has to include an estimate of stamp duty. How the hell does he know? He doesn't. So they use HMRC's online estimator. We don't call it a calculator because a calculator will come to a finite answer. And they've admitted it's only an estimator. They did that in 2018. You then get a number. He then asks you for that amount of money to put on client account. Why? Because he has to make sure that he is in sufficient funds to enable the client to complete their purchase.
Yeah.
So he's between a rock and a hard place. He's estimated the SDLT. He's got the cash. He has to have that in order to fulfill his duty to his client. What seems to happen is nobody then stops and what I call stop, pause, breathe, and go, right, hang on, we did that as an estimate. Did we get it right? No, everybody takes that first guess as a verbatim answer. Probably because the clients used the HMRC's calculator, or they click the calculate my SDLT button on Rightmove, Zoopla, whatever. And nobody questions it unless they're a little bit savvy.
Yeah.
So the thing rolls forward, completes, the return goes in based on a wrong number, and the money's paid out. I mean, I took a phone call from a client, and I have to tell you this story. I can't tell you who it is, obviously, but he was buying a block of flats at 2.3 million, 23 flats, 6 commercial garages not let to the flat owners. So we've got a mixed use, active commercial, active building. His lawyer sent him a completion statement that showed SDLT on 2.3 million of 230,000, 10.1%. It should only have been 5, even if they hadn't claimed multiple dwellings. By the time you claim multiple dwellings, it was 22,350. That's a 900% overpayment. What the lawyer had done was, we're engaged, we're buying this, get him an estimated completion statement out. The clerical admin hadn't even bothered to look at the file. She just typed in 2.3 million liable to surcharge and put that on the estimated completion statement. Clients on the phone to me saying, we're completing in 24 hours. I need advice. I said, well, you certainly do, because it's not, knock a 0 off the 230 and you'll be about right. And he said, well, that's the worst bit. They've already taken the money out of my client account, the full 230. And this is the problem. So following on from what you were saying, are there tools out there? And I can understand your reticence to give any idea on a stamp duty figure after the Affordable Mortgage Solutions case, which I'm sure you're aware of, where a broker underestimated the SDLT and the Financial Ombudsman found against him. There are a number of agile tools out there. Stamp Check is one of them, very, very good, but very, very truncated. And then now is a tool that solicitors can use that's fully indemnified called SDLT Compass. But ironically, and I know this, you go to solicitors and they say, we understand, fully audited, insures us from risk, make sure we get it right. We'll only use it on the difficult ones. The question is, how do you know what's a difficult one? You don't. It's always, in the words of Donald Rumsfeld, it's always the unknown unknowns that are going to get you.
Sorry, David, what's the other one? Stamp Check and
SDLT Compass.
SDLT Compass, right.
In the interest of full disclosure, I might have an interest or more than one interest in both of those, because we wrote these because we wanted somebody to have a sort of, I won't say a one click, but a portal that they could get to, which would at least give them a better than inaccurate estimate. I mean, they're written using different methods. Stamp Check is supposed to be an estimator for finance brokers and for front-end staff at law firms, and it basically answers about 12 questions, and it gives you what's called a high-low figure. It says, well, at the highest it'll be this, but it could be this. You might need to get advice. It's an advice pointer. Compass is a lot more sophisticated, about 140 questions, but it does cover all 49 reliefs for SDLT. And
wow.
That's designed for legal professionals to use and other qualified professionals who understand the file, understand the terminology of conveyancing and tax. And that's really why we would never release that into a general public domain. But, again, you say 49 reliefs. There are 49 reliefs for this tax. You go if you buy a property, if you're a property trader and you buy a property from a deceased person's estate, you shouldn't be paying SDLT at all. It's exempt. If you are a partnership and you sell property to your pension scheme, you shouldn't pay SDLT. It's exempt, and so on and so on. And these are being missed week in, week out. In the short term, the best thing to do, to answer your question, Akhil, is if the client, have a look at the property, say to the client, has it got an annex? Has it got this? Has it got that? If it has, go and get some advice. I mean, a lot of transactions are bought. We saw a headline this morning that said 1/3 of conveyancing transactions last year aborted. And in 54% of cases, the reason given was the clients had not saved enough to pay all the bills, including the stamp duty. I question whether the stamp duty figure they were given, or that they thought they were working to, was in fact too high because they hadn't had any advice. So there's a kind of a feeling that it's actually causing aborted deals. And I think there was some anecdotal evidence from the mortgage industry 2-3 years ago that said 40% of all applications fail affordability because of stamp duty.
Sorry, David. And I come from a time where stamp duty was 1 or 2%, right?
Yeah.
And so you're saying people have put an offer in for a house.
Mm-hmm.
When the estimates get done, they work out they can't afford the stamp duty.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason is that it's overestimated.
Yeah. And then they walk away from the deal.
Yeah. That means stamp duties become a significant amount. It's almost the tail wagging the dog now, right?
Mm.
And B, if they're cutting it that close, they shouldn't. They're overpaying for the deal, full stop.
Well, this is the whole point. I mean, if you walk into a solicitor, you look at a house, pick a number, £1 million house, for example.
Look, I'm in the cheap end of the market, right? Let's say 500,000, and this will shock viewers, right? Not the fact that I'm at the cheap end, but what the stamp duty on 500,000 might be.
Yeah, but you pick a £500,000 house, you toddle along, you've done the deal, you're kind of in your own head saying, well, I know the stamp duty is going to be around 25,000 loosely. I can't work it out off the top of my head anymore. You walk into the solicitor and it says, thank you very much. That is going to be actually going to be nearly 50,000. And you go, WTF? Well, we think you're liable for the second home surcharge. So there's another 15,000. Oh, and because you've spent more than 183 days out of the UK in the last 365, there's a 2% non-resident surcharge. There's another 10.
Yeah.
25 on your bill that you didn't think you were liable for, and you may not in fact be liable for. And then what do? You go, well, that's 25 grand I haven't got, so I'll walk away from the deal.
I thought the first 25 was bad news. I'm still trying to get my head around the first 25, right?
But what I'm saying, you literally can see at the sort of 500,000 to $1 million level, you can see with these surcharges, if they're incorrectly applied, doubling the tax cost. And a lot of people will walk away from the deal.
Okay, David, can we cut to the chase? If somebody was to come to you, what would be the charge to them to estimate, to calculate the thing? Or even if a solicitor bought into SLDT Compass, what would be the extra charge to them?
Well, if you come directly to us, as for quote human professional advice, we don't charge for any discussions we have to find out the facts. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
We generally charge £250 per $250,000 of value to issue what we call a rate certification letter. If we're claiming a relief, we charge 25% of the benefit from the relief. Now, that includes the advice, the return, dealing with any HMRC investigation, because you never know, and the costs of hearing before a first tier tribunal. So actually it's like a bundle price you get for a mobile phone. There's a lot in the package.
So
And-
what's the figure we're talking about? Say of £1 million house.
But 25% of what he saves you, no win, no fee, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice straightforward. We find it's easier to price like that. You know, you're trying to price
No,
by
that-
the hour is
that-
impossible.
That's fair enough, but the prospective purchaser still doesn't know where he stands. How much
No,
he's
but
going to pay.
we won't go. We won't go forward until the prospective purchaser does know where he stands. So, you know, for example,
So what
somebody
if he says, no, I don't want to go ahead now?
well, that's fine. That's the pro. But if he goes ahead on the figure we've advised and he doesn't have the benefit of professional advice, his lawyer probably won't let him do it.
Sure.
So you've got that.
David,
problem.
sorry, I've got to go now, but thank you so much, David, for the comments there. No doubt we'll be in touch very soon.
That's great. Nice
Okay.
to talk to you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Akil.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Akil.
Enjoy the half day, Akil.
No comment. See you later. Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
Right. Thanks for your brief presence. But anyway, sorry, David. Look, sorry. The 25% is once you've done your deal and it's a recovery amount, right? Or is it before the?
No, it applies the same if we're doing a relief claim. If we're doing a correction, a refund, yes, 25%. If we are advising pre-completion, we generally charge the client an initial fee of usually just a few thousand, just as a good faith payment, and then we charge the rest at completion of the purchase. That fee, of course, being fully refundable if there's a revenue inquiry within the inquiry window and subsequently we lose it. But generally speaking, we like to have the money in the bank. Now, like any business, the larger the deal, the more you get a discount off 25%. But we know 25% is, to use a phrase, our recommended retail price.
Any special deals for TPP guys?
Of course, have a word with me once we stop recording, because I'm not putting that on video.
No. For our community, the people watching this on Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. No, we will offer a discount to TPP members, definitely. We like dealing with people who are experienced in property. They're a lot easier to deal with, let's be quite clear. They tend to know what they're talking about and understand what we're saying. So
Okay.
that's always beneficial.
One more question on the Compass.
I've got one as well, but I'll let you go first, Renda, because I'm polite.
Thank you. Who is it available to?
Well, Compass is only available to solicitors firms. We do have quite a number of solicitors firms who have started to use it. We've got a new major release coming up in 2 weeks, which is also enhancing functionality, not accuracy, but functionality. The best thing to do is to go and ask, if you've got a solicitor, is go and ask them, do you use Compass? Because you can buy a certified insured calculation from that, which will remove you, Mr. Solicitor, from liability if you screw up my calculation. That's always a big selling point. I think it's a risk outsourcing tool for lawyers. If a client wants to use a solicitor who already uses Compass, then we do have a list of the firms that are using it. And yeah, we more than happily refer a client, a prospect, to a Compass user because they would like Compass using. That's always perfectly possible.
Okay. Do these solicitors charge an extra fee for using Compass,
Well,
or is it inclusive of their charges?
No, Compass charges the client via the solicitor £50 for that calculation. That assumes the calculation is what's described as low risk. In other words, there is nothing in the detailed answers that raises what we call flags. If it raises flags, Compass says, no, actually, you need to go and talk to Cornerstone because there's something here that I don't like. And usually it's one of the reliefs, or it might be that there's a connected party issue, which might be advantageous to the client. And the solicitor hasn't spotted it. So it's not foolproof, but it's designed to filter out all the really normal transactions and say, yeah, they're okay, they can go. And it's designed to capture the abnormal transactions and make sure that the lawyers A, are warned about it, and B, make sure that the client gets advice, because I think it's about 1 in 10 Compass transactions at the moment is referred out, 10%. And that's actually probably about where I thought it would be when we developed the software. But when you consider that we talked about 49 reliefs earlier, on average, the average solicitor, and I did a survey on this once, the average solicitor believes there are fewer than 10. So they're missing 39 out of
Reliefs.
49 reliefs.
Right.
It's a good job we didn't bring our resident solicitor to this meeting, isn't it, Surinder?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not anti-solicitor, but they do have, they look, they've genuinely got an issue. They're under fee pressure, time pressure. They don't have time to be tax experts as well as everything else they do. I actually have a degree at modicum of sympathy for them. That's why we wrote Compass, because it was like, guys, you're getting this wrong, and you're getting it wrong too frequently. You need a tool like this to make sure you get it right, or at least are alerted to when things aren't normal.
Fantastic.
So that's what we did.
Sorry, Surinder, you could have part B to your question before I jump in. I'm going to give you a bit extra because I've put an extra 50p
You're too kind, please.
I've put an extra 50p in just for you, right?
Yeah.
And David, you didn't need any 50p's because you weren't sharing any slides today.
The multiple dwellings relief, that applies to multiple purchases, consecutive purchases.
Provided they're linked, provided they're linked transactions. Okay, so sorry, did you say 6?
No, 6 or more, whatever. What is the minimum?
Well,
number?
okay, so no, there is no minimum number. It's 2 or more.
Okay.
And that 2 or more don't have to be in the same transaction. They could be in a series of linked transactions. The rule of 6 actually applies if you buy 6 or more dwellings on a single contract. You're entitled to use the commercial rate. But here's where it gets to be fun. Even though you're entitled to use the commercial rate, it may still be beneficial to claim multiple dwellings relief. You have to do the calculation both ways. And again, I think if you're I seem to recall, if you're a body corporate, you now have to do it 3 different ways and take the best result. And that's actually in the revenue guidance. But what we're not seeing, I mean, we do a lot of work with developers of various scales, right the way up to PLC. And the first thing through the door from the FD is, guys, I've got this site, this investment. What are my possible SDLT outcomes? Because they know now that there could be multiple answers.
Right.
So,
But yeah, it's good. They're good. It's good fun. The calculations are quite easy. Well, we think they're quite easy. I think everybody else thinks they're quite complicated. But it's probably one of the best release outside of the trader release, which are fairly, I call them niche, because you can get your rate down as low as 1%. And I mean, a 1% on a stamp duty on a property deal is pretty good.
What do you mean by traders relief?
These are these other little release, buying from personal representatives, where property traders are buying to, I call it, tart them up and sell them on. So if you're buying from a personal representative, if you're stepping in to restore a broken chain, if you're buying a part exchange property from somebody buying a new home from a house builder, or somebody relocating their employment, that's it. They're all exempt, 100% exempt from SDLT. And that's quite cute. That's quite cool. There are certain limits on the improvement or refurbishment expenditure you can do, but it excludes necessary safety expenditure. So you buy a house, it's in, I call it poor decorative order, but otherwise sound. You're allowed to spend some money on painting it and presenting it. You buy a rundown house that's probably needs redecorating, but also the electrics are unsafe. The gas boiler's been condemned. The money you spend on the electrical systems and making the gas boiler safe or putting a new one in, that's necessary safety expenditure, and that isn't counted towards the expenditure cap on the relief. You would argue if there's no floorboards in the upstairs bedroom, that putting floorboards down is necessary safety expenditure, of course, because you don't want to fall through the ceiling into the lounge. But
is that allowed against the SLDT or what?
Well, no, I mean, the point being that you can buy a property, but provided you buy a property as a trader, provided you don't exceed the expenditure threshold, you get exemption. or in fact, you get exemption initially, you don't lose it because you exceed the expenditure thresholds later. And you consider that, I mean, we did one during lockdown where I think it was a 1.83 million pound house and the guy was a trader. And you only have to work out, I mean, that saved him over £200,000. And his solicitor literally turned around and said, "Oh, I've never heard of that. When was it introduced?" I had to say 2003. But never mind, it's only been around for 19 years. You know,
That's not long.
not long at all, is it? You know, it goes back to the point about solicitors. They don't have time to learn all this and remember it. And that's why I said I have a modicum of sympathy. But, you know, the trader reliefs are really quite interesting if you're into property trading. My wife did one where we had to step in to restore a broken chain, and the person was buying a home from us, and we were like, okay, we'll resell it, and we were just getting ready to remarket it, and Nottingham City Council turned up and said, "Oh, this looks nice for social housing," and they gave us 10,000 more than we paid for it. So it wasn't a bad turn in 3 weeks, was it? Bearing in mind, all we were really trying to do was secure the sale of the unit that my wife had just finished building. So they can be valuable.
Sorry. Does that mean that you can become a property trader when you're not a property trader? Or have I got the wrong end of it?
No, you can become a property trader. The relief defines property trader as a company established for that purpose.
So a special purpose vehicle is a property trader?
Yes.
And is that the same special purpose vehicle that can claim Section 24 relief?
You'd have to ask me what Section 24 relief is. Do you mean
the interesting? Yeah.
All limited companies are entitled to Section 24 relief. It's
so a company that buys buy-to-let property is a property trader, or is that something different?
No, a company that buys buy-to-let property is a property investment company. You would need to start a new company to do the trading.
Right. Okay.
But, you know, it's like, as we know, it's 75 quid and 10 minutes online and boom, you've got yourself a company.
Yep.
Yeah, but you'd have to pay tax on the gains, obviously, as
it would be profits. Yeah, corporation tax on profits. But that's probably better than, well, almost certainly better than paying a lump of SDLT which you shouldn't have done.
Yep. Got it.
And it's going to improve your margin on sale, or in an uncertain market, going to insulate you against any sudden falls in price or value. So, you know, my view has always been, if it's possible, if you can do it, claim it. We would no respectable accounting or tax professional would turn around to somebody and say, "Tell you what, listen, just to be on the safe side, don't claim your personal allowance this year. Don't use your dividend allowance." I mean, but here are these reliefs for SDLT floating around, and yet everybody's saying, "Oh, if I was you, I wouldn't claim it." I don't get that.
So, Surinder, I was just helping you to improve your question there. Here's my question, David, and it's
go on.
It's from one of our viewers.
As I said to you, you're kind. So you're
kind. Man, it's my pleasure, Surinder. I just couldn't help but improve that question. So you're more than welcome. And
thank you.
Listen, don't forget to send some 50p's my way, right? Anyway, sorry, David.
I don't deal in 50p's.
Yeah, all right. Well, send me those 50 quid notes. You haven't sent me one yet, but anyway, it's like, come on. All right. Anyway, back to the point. Focus on the subject, David. I nearly lost my train of thought. When someone's gifting someone a property, so say parents gift the child a property or vice versa, and there's no consideration, is there any stamp duty on it?
As between members of the family?
Yeah.
So as between human beings, absolutely not. No way.
Okay.
Unless they're gifting it subject to a mortgage.
In
which case you pay SDLT on the value of the mortgage assumed. That similarly, but for different reasons, transfers from partnerships to limited companies, or indeed partners or people connected to the partners should be nil SDLT ordinarily. But
Sorry,
not-
hang on. Go on. I'll let you finish first.
But here's the trap. So having said all of this, a transfer from an individual to a connected company is charged at market value. I've never understood why, but that's the way it is.
So why was this thing that you had to have, if you had a partnership, with two partners holding a property, you had to transfer into LLP and then into a company? Why couldn't they have directly done it?
That's actually to manage what's called the capital withdrawal charge. So if you've transferred property to a partnership,
Mhm.
and then within 3 years transfer the property out, the partnership automatically comes to an end, doesn't it? If you think
Yeah.
about it, if you're incorporating a partnership, the partnership ends. Well, at that point, the partners get to withdraw their capital.
Mm.
And there's this little clause that says if within 3 years of transferring property into a partnership, capital is withdrawn other than out of income profits, sorry for quoting the statute at you, but you need to understand the difference, then SDLT is charged on the amount of capital withdrawn. So what a lot of people have said is you've got to stay in that partnership for 3 years, or you've got to go into partnership, into LLP, and then you can incorporate, and you can do that inside 3 years. But your first thing to establish is, has there been any property transferred in by any of the partners in the previous 3 years? Because if there hasn't, you don't need the LLP route. Say, for example, two people came together, started a partnership, and they went out and bought properties. There's never been any property transferred in by the partners. Ergo, you don't have to worry about the clawback charge on 17A. But that's what's called having that. This is why you have to have that conversation with the clients. Say, look, tell me about, just don't show me the portfolio. Tell me about the portfolio. How have you built it up? How has it been acquired? When was it done? Because that will literally flush out if there is a para 10, what we call a para 10 17A problem. Once you've cleared that ground, then you can define a way forward. I see a lot of people out there going, do this hybrid partnership. You have to go the LLP route to be absolutely sure. It's not right. What people have done is they've designed an approach.
Right.
It's not wrong, but now they're trying to push everybody down the same through the same sausage machine, as I call it. And it may not be necessary in some cases. And I do worry that, particularly this LLP route, that I've seen one version that says that you don't have to incorporate, you just bring the company into partnership. And I'm screaming about that. I'm like, oof, are you sure? Oof.
Company into partnership.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's known as a hybrid partnership structure. And I've got my concerns about it because of the settlements legislation, and also a company as a partner in a partnership for SDLT purposes, when it's a partner, not when it's outside the partnership, but when it's a partner, it's deemed to not be connected, triggering a charge to SDLT.
Oh, okay. So that's when you have an LLP and one of the partners is a limited company.
Yeah. I've got my doubts about that. I mean, I haven't seen the advice in detail. I might be wrong because I might be misunderstanding what's being said. I've only ever seen marketing material on it, but it raised a couple of like, oh, hang on a minute. Flags as I think I've already referred to them. And these flags were going, I'm not sure that sounds right. But I also acknowledge that explanations in marketing material may gloss over detail, which is not immediately apparent. So, but certainly no, I mean, the LLP route is valid, but it's not necessarily needed for everybody.
Sure.
And just to clarify that point, if you're in a partnership and it's moving to a limited company, you do not need to pay the stamp duty on that transfer.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. Surinder, more questions? I've got my final question ready to go, and I think David can guess what that might be.
I think we're coming up to time.
Run out of tea. So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Just wanted to ask you your opinion as to where the property market is going now.
I might not be controversial on this one. Up.
What?
Up.
What are the reasons behind it?
Prove it.
I can't prove it. I'll tell. Ask me back in a year, and I'll tell you why
Yeah.
I was right.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's just deal with what the gloom and doom mongers are saying. You know, we've got rising interest rates, pressure on domestic incomes. That's fine. I get all that. Mortgage rates are still less than inflation. Let's be clear. We still have a chronic undersupply in this country, both of bricks and mortar generally. We have a private rental sector where demand is encouraging people to buy more properties to rent. So we've got landlords being drawn in. We have to remember we're an open market economy. We've got foreign capital coming in. And a lot of that foreign capital is Chinese, or more specifically, Hong Kong Chinese, because we're starting to see the wave of people with a right to live here, British passport holders from Hong Kong, coming here now. They're getting out of Dodge in increasing numbers.
Mhm.
That's also, so we've got an influx of British passport holders who used to live elsewhere in the world. They are also increasing the demand pressure on the supply of housing. So while demand continues to exceed supply, and whilst we have external, I'll call them external inward bound purchasers, be they investors or occupiers, who are cash rich and therefore less affected by mortgage payments and mortgage interest rises, in my view, that's going to keep the market moving. It may slow, but the market is not going to fall. That's my view.
Understandable. Even then, although the interest rates are going up, there's a lot of money in the market, which is big, which is a bit concerning because that would put pressures on inflation anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the question is what you think's driving inflation. I mean, you know, inflation is, although inflation was triggered by the government printing money during the pandemic, by the way, something which they absolutely had to do. The whole world had to do it.
Sure.
What we're now dealing with is energy-led supply loss and the rising costs of energy, and that's been triggered by the Ukraine war. Most of the problems we've got with inflation at the moment are what are called, it's not an excess of demand, it's an undersupply. We had an escalation in the cost of building materials caused by pandemic disruption to construction materials supply chains. We've got a labor undersupply in the construction industry, so building workers are able to demand pretty much their own whatever day rate they want. I was up in Manchester 3 months ago and listening to developers literally moaning that they were losing labourers to London and they were getting another £200 a day to do the same job in London as they were doing in Manchester.
Sure.
So we've got all these, it's a complex mix, but fundamentally a lot of the inflationary element of what we're going through at the moment will be sorted out by a fall in the oil price back to pre-war and possibly even pre-pandemic levels. And that will take a lot of the heat out of it because, you know, oil and gas, and particularly oil, you know, we forget doesn't just fill our cars, it fuels the lorries that delivers our food, it runs the generators and the factories that package our food. So it feeds through into every element of our economy. So yeah, at the moment I was talking to somebody the other day and I said I would expect, depending on battlefield results, that by 12 months the oil price will start, if it hasn't returned, it will be on a downward trajectory, either because the whole war's over and Russia's now trying to sell oil cheap to pay reparations to the Ukraine. So you know which way I think the war's going.
I was going to say that looks like.
Or B, somebody will have brought a lot more fields on stream And the Saudis and everybody else were going, well, that's it, lads. We may as well just sign an energy security contract with Europe, and we'll sell it at $85 a barrel. And Europe will turn around and give two fingers to the Russian oil and gas suppliers. I think that's what will happen.
You think that's on the horizon? They're going to go because Russia's an OPEC member, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're an OPEC member. I mean, OPEC is not a trade union. OPEC is
It's a cartel.
It's a cartel organization, but they do act in their own individual national self-interests. And I cannot see the Saudis, the Iranians, I can't remember who else is in OPEC, but basically they cannot see the Arab countries agreeing to cut their own throats to help out an aggressor. And it is an aggressive nation.
But those are the very countries who haven't condemned them.
Well, I appreciate that, but they were also the very countries that screamed blue murder when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait and screamed to the West, come and save us because this guy's trying to take our oil fields.
Ah, okay. There's something going on in the back doors that obviously you know about that we don't know about.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to take the highest, the longest possible sort of, I call it strategic view of things. Things are going to settle down one way or the other. And there is a, I'll call it an average dollar price for a barrel of oil, which is likely to be around $85 to $100 a barrel, and it's way above that at the moment. So it's going to come down, and that'll take inflation out of our economy. That's
I can't see that because I can remember oil prices being 125, near 125 a barrel, and the petrol prices were under £1 a litre, and it's not even up to that level, and we are £2 a litre.
So you mean $125, not 125, right?
Yeah, 125. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
the governments have taken it.
If you're asking me to translate how barrel prices translate to pump prices, I've had 40 years trying to work that one out, and I've still never made it.
It's just that the government steps in and increases the tax. That's all.
Yeah, all right, Surinder, we've done enough government bashing for today. Come on. I personally think eventually inflation runs out of steam because everyone, I mean, the media are doing a fantastic job of steering everyone.
Let me tell you, I went to Cyprus earlier this year.
Didn't bring us back any presents, mate. What's this about?
Yeah, in southern Cyprus, the price was 165 a litre.
Yeah.
In northern Cyprus, it was less than a euro a litre.
Yeah, it's overtaxed basically.
And people from south rush to the north to fill up their tanks.
Yeah. No, how much did you bring back?
Well, a whole load, airplane load.
An airplane.
It's in my back garden under the tank.
Yeah. Well, okay. David, Surinder, have you finished all your wise and wonderful questions?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. You are too kind to allow me.
Any more? Would you like a bonus question? No, we haven't got time for a bonus. No bonus. I've got to ask you a really important question, David.
Yes, by all means.
And you know what's coming next?
What would I like for dinner? Because it's
or you're sending a bottle of champagne to him.
No, I'm not sending him any champagne. He might have to send me champagne. This wonderful program we've been doing. Right, important question. How's the rocket program?
That's going okay. For us rocket nuts, SpaceX has already launched this year more times than it launched in the entirety of last year.
So SpaceX is Elon's company, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah,
it's not Jeff's company, is it?
No, Jeff's company's got a problem. They can't build a working rocket at the moment.
Jeff's company can't do anything except deliver stuff on Amazon. They can't even build Lord of the Rings. But anyway, that's a different conversation.
Talking about rockets, how do you think Russia pulling out of this the space station going to work out?
I actually don't think they will.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, but they sacked the head of Roscosmos last week. He's been very, very pro-Putin and very, very derisory of the Americans. And suddenly he's gone. I don't know who's coming in, but the Russians are still buying seats on Crew Dragon to take their astronauts to the ISS. So are the Russians pulling out of the space station, or was that just an attempted geopolitical move that went wrong? SpaceX, I think, are confident that they could build because the only reason they need the Russians is to use the Soyuz to reboost the station back up to orbit. It does, it needs engines basically. SpaceX were confident they could produce a vehicle, as were Boeing, within 12 months that would be able to do the job. And I think that if the Russians try and play that game, international space politics, I think they just say, it might be the Americans going, well, that's fine, no problem, off you go, boys, thanks very much, see you. They're so far behind the power curve in terms of new development, and we talk about Falcon, we talk about Falcon Heavy, what's going on down in Texas with the Starship and the Starship system. It's just nothing short of unbelievable. You've got the largest heavy lift rocket ever built. It's got 33 engines on the booster, and it's fully reusable.
David, can we do a program on rockets? Not much around. This is like fascinating. We're obviously doing the wrong program with you, right?
No, listen, I'm not a rocket expert. I mean, I tell you what, guys, there are some great YouTubers out there, most of them based in the States, unfortunately, who would really, really brief you in well. I mean, there's a guy called Scott Manley, who is just, his handle is DJ Scott Manley. I was trying to work out whether he actually is a rocket scientist or he's self-taught. And there's Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut. And again, he's got an inside track with Elon. He gets to go and interview him. And those guys are really up on it. And Tim Dodd started life as a commercial photographer. He's become literally a rocket scientist and a rocket nut. But I mean, I just have an interest in it. I love aerospace. I love to know how things work. I guess that's how I ended up working in tax. But
that's a 10-year link, mate. That's a 10-year link.
I don't know. I mean, I just love to take things apart and go, oh, hang on, how does this work? Oh, that's interesting. What are the outcomes of that? Just ask my wife, because half the time she comes home, the coffee machine's in pieces all over the table, and she'll go, what went wrong with it? I'll go, nothing. I just wanted to see how it worked. Then she has to watch me try and put it back together again for the next 2.5 hours. But I think if you've got the kind of inquiring mind, then you're drawn to things like this. If you've got a mind that is an optimistic one that says, well, actually, space exploration is cool, and I buy into what Elon says, that we need to be a multiplanetary species. We need to be not dependent solely on Earth. If you buy into that narrative, then you're going to be drawn to those sorts of topics. If if you want to believe in a glorious future, then you're going to be drawn to space. It's natural.
And do you think space will have its own taxes, or are we going to get away from taxation?
I think we'll get away from taxation. Absolutely. How the hell are you going to enforce it? I think. I mean, let's be clear. I think that governments of the world will start charging import duty or landing duty on spacecraft. But space-based industry, space-based medicine, indeed, the moon could become a source of helium-3 to fuel fusion reactors, solving our energy crisis and helping us to cut down on carbon emissions. Any government that tried to tax that little lot, when it's arguably saving the planet and saving lives, there'd be a very brave government that would do that.
We might have to have a separate conversation on the carbon stuff. Love
to. I mean, again, eco-technology and that sort of thing is another hobby of mine. I've blogged on it. I have commented we need to have a relaxation in planning conditions to allow us to accelerate towards net zero. I've started lobbying on that as well, because I'm the poor bugger who lives in a grade 2 listed property, so I can't touch mine, much less put a solar panel on it. And it's driving me mad, because I've got none of them. I've got none, I mean 0 modern features. I don't even have double glazing.
Serves you right for living in a grade 2 listed building.
No.
Somebody's got to preserve our country's history. But they should be allowed to do it with double glazing. That's all I'm saying.
And air conditioning.
Don't need it. I've got clay on tile floors. This place is a heat sink.
Oh.
UIPS, 41 degrees outside, 27 inside.
Wow.
Couldn't warm the place up to save our lives.
So, David, when have we got the next tax emergency coming? When do we need to have you back on?
I really don't know. I think it would be probably interesting to come on, if you want me to, towards the end of September, or just before the autumn statement. We may know more about the SDLT changes. Not sure when the autumn statement is. I think it's November, isn't it?
But I think they're going to make that statement as soon as whoever comes
So,
in first.
Surinder, as Steve McGarrett used to say in Y50, book 'em, Dano. Sorry, that just came to me.
Well, guys, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Great fun talking
Absolutely.
to you.
And what's for dinner, David? What are we having for dinner?
I don't know.
All right.
I'll leave that. I'll leave that to the house manager. But geez.
Leave it to the boss, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pleasure having you on.
All right.
And
Thank you,
I hope
David.
you enjoyed it as much as we did.
We did. I did. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Cheers,
And
thank you.
for everybody else, remember, if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. And I hope you enjoyed the
Oh,
enjoyed the property as well as the mucking around.
one final word. This is the
Oh.
last meeting for July. There's no meetings in August.
What?
We start
What?
again in September.
What do you mean there's no meetings in August?
No, it's a holiday time.
What we're gonna do next 4 weeks? What we're gonna do? What's
Holiday.
that about?
Have a break. Enjoy the sunny weather.
yeah.
Do the garden.
This is fun, right?
Do your blogs.
Do my blog nothing to do with next 4 weeks. I'm just gonna stay in bed all 4 weeks now. That's terrible news.
Good.
I
luck
think
to
we
you.
should protest.
All right. You start a protest movement.
Right. There you go, guys. To all our viewers, Srinder's just broken the bad news. We might have 4 weeks rest. Can we
Yeah,
watch some of our highlights? Can you arrange that to happen?
Oh, we can arrange that. That's not a problem.
Please, because we're going to get withdrawal symptoms otherwise. Come on.
Okay. All right. No problem.
So Surinder,
Just for you.
so all the booze go to Surinder. I did try and rescue it. We're going to get some highlights.
Did you see all the
There's
booze comes to me? That's fine. No problem with that.
Not booze. Boo. It's not Christmas season yet. Anyway,
Double OS, not double OZEs.
exactly.
Oh.
That's it. Not booze. Boo. Like the pantomime. Right, David.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Surinder, no thanks for that, but I guess you're it is what it is. I'm gonna have to find somebody
But
to do the
if
next
you want
one.
to take responsibility, you can go ahead and have the meetings.
Yeah, well, you're the
without
one who
me.
books, you book the guests, right? What am I gonna sit here and do?
Book the guests as well. You got plenty of resources.
That's too much hard work. It's no fun, right? Sorry.
Okay. All right. That's the
All right.
end.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David, once again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
We'll
Cheers
see
now.
everybody in September, I guess.
September, I guess. Yes. Not guess. Definite.
Fantastic.